and then we'll be live if we press the button. Hey guys, hey everybody. Ryan set his alarm for 10, which I hope is a joke, because
Mm-hmm.
up till 10 since I don't know 2012 maybe.
Can I just say one thing before we get going?
Please.
Koig, we can go.
What the hell was that?
Come on, you Gunners. We just won our first match of the season. 1 down, 37 to go.
Okay, well, that was Jonathan's favorite part of the show probably so far, the sports minute. All right, so we're back with 40 for 40. It's Saturday, as always, as we always come to you on Saturday mornings. And this show is always, we're just kind of always on a specific schedule, you know? We're nothing if not scheduled.
I think what's
Always scheduled.
important is that we occasionally do this.
You mean the
it's
show?
occasionally live, and then it's occasionally at the time that we set out to do this. It's amazing. Kids are great, aren't they?
They are great. I'm here at the beach. I am recovering from the MSG flu, but I'm gonna be fine. Everything's gonna be fine, guys.
Name?
Is that the strain now in 2023?
I think so. I think so.
The latest strain is MSG07.
Exactly. But we had a great time last Saturday. I missed you both, as we talked about on Monday. Okay. So it's 2006, guys. We left this in 2005. I was not on that episode, but we are adding one person to the band that was featured in 2005, right? An obscure
which
guitarist.
mean it's just going to go deeper and outer and better, right?
I assume that was the intention.
Suddenly,
and more tickets are going to be sold there.
Definitely, more tickets are going to be sold.
So this, Grab started as Mike and the duo, as we highlighted in 2005. I guess, Jonathan, I know that you, as is now the new tradition on HF Pod, you have a statement. I don't know if you want to do that now. I just want to say that as I'm listening back to this, Fish is completely in limbo. As fans, we were completely in limbo in 2006. Yet this show has 3 of the members of Fish playing together in the encore.
For a moment, yeah.
And I guess you can address this after the statement or before, but like Trey is always motivated. Trey is always he's always writing new material. Mike talked about this in his interview with Chris Pandolfi, that one of the things he's most impressed by is just how prolific Trey is, which we all know, but it's interesting to hear other artists say that. But what do you guys think Trey's motivation was in 2006, like musically or career wise? Like, because Fish is not happening yet. People are coming in and out. I'm just wondering what you guys think, because I feel like this is totally different than 2005 Trey solo stuff. Can you guys speculate on what you think Trey was trying to accomplish with this tour musically?
I think Trey wanted to play, and he saw that Mike had a good thing going with the duo, and was like, "Oh, I bet there's room for a guitar player on that." And maybe there was some other hindrance, some other barrier to doing tab or whatever that he might have done. And so he said, "Hey, let's do this." I mean, there could be other factors. I mean, this summer tour that we're going to talk about here as a package tour, if you will, we don't know how this got put together exactly. Phil's going on tour. Who approached who to get the duo on, or Trey on, or what? So there's some element to that probably. But Trey wanted to play.
Yeah, I get that sense. I think twofold. The post Fish period has produced a lot of change in terms of his approach from a songwriting standpoint, from a performance standpoint. We've seen him with multiple bands at this point in time, various lineups from a tab standpoint. I think in one sense, he's just trying to figure out something that works. And so you're just seeing him kind of play the 70 Bolt Parade for a bit here and try to interpret his music this way, play with Tab for a bit here, interpret his music this way, write his music this way, play the orchestral stuff and continue writing charts and continue developing over there. Grab seems like and in some cases as well, what he did in the fall seemed like this happy medium between whatever I did with Fish was what worked best. It sold the most tickets, it got the most attention, it got the most energy. But I'm also, you have Bar 17, this record that comes out in 2006 that has a lot of kind of really quiet, very introspective songs, a lot of songs that have really dissonant jams that come off of them. It seems almost like the best equation I can put is like a Neil Young, Bob Dylan lost period, where you look back on it 15 years from now or 15 years later, and it kind of makes sense. But in the moment, it felt like he's just grabbing at whatever, no pun intended, but he's just grabbing at whatever is going to like work for the moment in time. And sometimes it really works. And other times, as we saw in 2005, it didn't totally work from a musical inspiration standpoint.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Sorry to throw us off with that intro, but I just, it's a question. Okay, Jonathan, how do we start? Because we gotta step back and think about 2006. Luckily, I just want to say sorry, Jonathan. Before I hand it off to you, I just want to say that
we're lucky.
Well, we're lucky because you did some light editing to Brian's cultural context for 2006, which I just appreciate. I think it'll make it, 27 minutes instead of 53 minutes, and I think that's helpful. So thank you.
I didn't dare pare down the albums. I just,
of course not.
Hope. I mean, I wanted to. Let's be clear.
Fair.
But I want to say, and I say this with great respect for Brian and the youth of America, which is to say that the albums on his list that don't matter to me might matter to him. I was just already old and curmudgeonly by then. So,
fair.
Brian, with that intro, why don't you take it away with your cultural perspective of 2006?
Well, and I will just say going into this, 2006, I was 21 years old. I lived by myself. I was at a very important transitional point in my life. It was the year I met my wife. We started dating. It was like this huge, lots of things that are now part of my life were coming into focus at this point in time. And with that, this was also this year in 2007, and I would say early 2008, I was so far removed from anything Fishdom. I had a chance to go to a Grab show in summer 2006 and just passed it up entirely because I just didn't care. I didn't want to. And so a lot of the records I have listed here in terms of good records that came out in 2006 were a reflection of my own interests, my own musical interests were changing. But just a quick rundown. 2006 was a big year television wise. We had season 4 of The Wire, arguably one of the best television seasons in TV history. Sopranos season 6.1, episode 1 of that ends with a shocking scene where Junior, I won't tell you, but it's just an incredible scene between Junior and Tony. The final season of Deadwood, Weeds season 2.
Final season of Deadwood, does that really make the list?
It's a great. Did you ever watch that show?
I think I watched the first season. I think I lost.
Oh my God, Al Swearingen!
Okay.
What an amazing.
All right, sorry.
Did I tell you that my grandmother's maiden name is Swearingen? And
I didn't. You didn't. That's
right,
amazing stuff.
Okay,
A show I don't care that much about, but I think changed a lot about television. Friday Night Lights debuted in 2006.
Now we're gonna fight.
We will. My wife loves that show. I can't really.
Oh,
I can't do it.
Absolutely.
It's Always Sunny season 2 and 30 Rock's season 1. Movies, we had some great movies that came out in 2006. Thank You for Smoking, V for Vendetta, Little Miss Sunshine, Christopher Nolan's favorite movie, which is Talladega Nights, which was a fact I learned while reading about Oppenheimer. Amazing stuff.
That is epic.
Very good. The Departed, The Prestige, speaking of Christopher Nolan, Babel, Casino Royale, For Your Consideration, The Good Shepherd, my favorite movie of 2006, and Children of Men. I'm already getting Friday Night Lights anger in the chats. I apologize. We all have different tastes. Some people love that show. Clearly, it was very successful and launched a ton of huge careers. Music-wise, Number one song, excuse me, guys. Early in the morning recording, Number one song in America at the time of this show was Nelly Furtado featuring Timberland, Promiscuous, a song that apparently Megan was dancing to at
Never heard it.
weddings at this point in time. But it is important to note that the song of
raves.
the summer, yes, right. The song of the summer, Crazy by Gnarls Barkley, was rising rapidly on the charts in July 2006. A quick rundown of records that came out this year that I thought were quite good. Tom Waits' Orphans, Brawlers, and Bastards, TV on the Radios, Return to Cookie Mountain, Tim Hecker's Harmony and Ultraviolet. Shout out to all my ambient heads out there. Bob Dylan's Phenomenal Modern Times, Joanna Newsom's Yeast, The Hold Steadies, Boys and Girls in America, my favorite record of that year. Arctic Monkeys, Whatever People Say I Am, That's What I'm Not. Justin Timberlake, Future Sex, Love Sounds. Scott Walker's The Drift. Yola Tango's I Am Not Afraid of You and I Will Beat Your Ass. Bonnie Prince Billy's The Letting Go.
That's an epic album.
It's a very epic album. Grizzly Bear's Yellow House, great record. Oneida's Happy New Year. The Knifes, Silent Shout. Califon's Roots and Crowns, huge record. The Decemberists, The Crane Wife. Belle and Sebastian, Life Pursuit. Peter, Bjorn, and John, Writer's Block, speaking of songs of summer. Paul Simon and Brian Eno, Surprise. The self-titled Pearl Jam record. Tom York's solo album, The Eraser. Neil Young's Living with War, incredibly underrated record. Beck, The Information, Camera Obscura, Let's Go to This Country, and one of my favorite records of that year, Trey Anastasio's Bar 17. Yes, I absolutely love that record.
Wow. Dropping the heat at the end there.
Couldn't tell you the last time I heard that record.
I listened to it yesterday.
Almost yesterday.
It is really interesting.
Almost yesterday.
It's produced really well.
That's a song on that album, isn't it?
That's it. No, that's on my next record.
Apparently it was recorded over 3 years. I didn't realize that until I was reading a little bit more about it yesterday, which it's just like a hodgepodge of songs from Trey at the time. But the title track is really nice. Hoist Across the Potomac, even though it has some ridiculous lyrics, has some huge jam potential. Cincinnati's recorded really well. It's really good stuff.
Can I just tell everybody that you texted us yesterday and said why has, or I would love Fish to play Hoist Across the Potomac, and I was like, I don't even know what that song sounds like. The only time I've seen Trey play was I walked out. The only time I saw him play that song, I walked out either during
Same
or
show,
at the
I
end
think.
of that song. It
Same
was
show,
at
right?
Landmark Theater, Richmond. Yeah.
It's amazing. I wonder if we walked by each other while
We're
walking.
probably opposite aisles. We were on the the stage left aisle down front.
I left during whatever the Knives Out, I think.
I
"All
stayed
I've had
until the
enough."
encore, and then I was just like, God, what?
That's the Radiohead song he was playing?
I think so, but that was in the first set, so that's not true. I probably left maybe during the solo acoustic section, or maybe Eye on the Walrus. It was something that was just like, I can't. Probably not during Knives Out because I was in the first set, but I probably didn't make it as long as Jonathan did.
Yeah. So
can I just say?
Anyways, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
No,
Well,
no,
I just want to say that because I know you have some stuff you want to say, Jonathan. But
Yeah.
2006 was one of the best years of my life because it was my first of 2 full years living in the Bay Area, and it was just like I just went to work in the city, and then I came back to Oakland, and then on the weekends we would go either to Baker Beach on the Richmond in San Francisco, or we would go to the Mission and just go from bar to bar all day, or we'd go to Sonoma, or we'd go to Santa Cruz, or we'd go to Big Sur, or we'd go to Tahoe, or we would just hang out in Oakland, and we had no kids and we had no responsibilities, and it was just amazing. But I remember listening to basically zero Fish and no jam band music whatsoever in 2006, which we can talk more about. But it's just it was such a great year because I was so in such a different place that I really, now looking back, was it was pretty amazing. Okay, that's all.
You don't realize at those points how good you have it.
Yeah.
To be an adult without children. What's that like? So Yeah, I do have a statement, and I want to preface it because normally here in the show we would have Megan come out and tell us, the what's happening with Fish in this year, and the answer is really nothing. You know, Trey had the Bar 17 record. We've alluded to some of the other tours. We're going to talk about one in particular here in a minute, but there's no Fish, and there is something that did happen in 2006 that if we're looking at the history we need to look at, and we're not going to dwell on it. So because we're here to celebrate Fish, the music of the band, the individuals, their own projects, as well as the greater community. And we have at times been willing to be blunt about things that didn't go well for the band. I'm sure we will again. But I think we do a reasonable job of staying out of the tabloid stuff and the salacious speculation, because it's not who we are. It's not what we do. It's not pleasant or even fun. Uh, but as we are celebrating this 40th anniversary of the band, I think we have to touch on this one thing. On December 15th, 2006, Trey Anastasio was pulled over in Whitehall, New York, and subsequently arrested for possession of controlled substances, DWI on drugs. This arrest led to Trey entering a drug court diversion program where he got sober, performed community service, lived a very controlled life for 14 months. And Trey has since credited the officer who pulled him over and the subsequent program for saving his life. And we are all thankful that Trey was stopped that night before he hurt himself or anyone else. And we're even more thankful that Trey heard the wake-up call and seized the opportunity to regain control of his life, because without that, we wouldn't be talking here today. Fish would not be the amazing band that they are today. The story of Fish would have ended in those bogged-out fields in Vermont in 2004. And so as we mark 2006 in our 40 by 40 calendar, we look at that December day with gratitude, but we're going to carry on talking about music.
Excellent.
Very well said.
Okay, Jonathan. So I chose this show, and we talked a little bit about this in our 10th anniversary party, which I am still hoping to release whenever I can find the stuff. We've kind of assigned years to each of us, and so I did some outreach to some artists, and I tried to get some perspective on where like people's heads were with regard to this tour, because a lot of them, as Jonathan said, and I haven't really thought that much about this part, which is that this was really a Phil and Friends tour for the most part, right? And they were playing, Grab was mostly playing a middle set between the duo and Phil and Friends. This show, 7/12/06 in Essex Junction, this I think was like rose to the top. We did a lot of research, and you did a lot of listening, Brian. I think you did too, Jonathan, but there definitely was like a lot of listening to some of this stuff to try to find the best show or the right show. But I think I guess I thought this was interesting because some of these shows that Grab played were like, there were some really long jams, right? There's like some 20 minute stuff. This has like it's a little bit more focused, which I think is interesting. I like the mixing in of the duo track in the middle. So I think this works. But Brian, as we go through, maybe you can talk about some of the other highlights from this tour, because I thought it was way less depressing and dark than like some of the other, post Fish stuff that I've heard. And I remember listening to it at the time, and I just kind of listened to this and was like, wow, this is really good. It's upbeat. It's got a lot of amazing improv. The band is obviously incredible, and so it'll be fun to get into. Should I read the set list and then we can just get into it?
Yeah, do that.
Yeah. So it's a one set, as I mentioned. This was the middle. There was a Phil and Friends show after this. So their set was Drifting, Trouble, Tuesday, Hap Nappy, Goodbye Head, Into Something for Rockets, Into Shine, Mud City, Into Uncle Albert, Admiral Halsey, Into Dragonfly. Encore is Who Are You, with Paige on keys and Mike on acoustic guitar. Just really doing pretty well on that acoustic guitar solo there. All right, so guys, I think this starts like the sorry, I just looked at one of my notes for later.
It's always a good sign when your own notes crack you up.
I love drifting. Like, I don't know.
Oh
Are
yeah,
there people who don't like drifting? It's just
I don't want to
creates
meet him.
yeah, it's a nice opener here, I feel like. Although we obviously have a re-listen. There's one show from this tour that's on Live Fish, but it sounds like people are still kind of getting settled, and I wonder what it was like there. But I like this opener, and I want to hear what you guys have to say about those first few songs.
Um, I want to take this because I think I'll be brief, Brian, and then you can go to town and tell me how I'm wrong and stuff. So just about I'm going to take the first three songs, which is
Perfect.
just drifting. Um, is maybe weird to say. Makes me miss the horns listening to this version.
Totally fair.
And but I'm going to start actually before I go any further. I want to just stop and say that um, anything that I say like that or whatever has no negative reflection on Marco and Joe. They are slamming the whole night. They're great. They are like above and beyond the role that might be perceived as the two guys backing the dudes from Fish, which is not what they're doing. They're fully interactive and really great in this context. The second song, Trouble. Really?
It's bad.
Trouble seems to find me. I mean, I'm not surprised this is not a song that Trey plays anymore.
It is a last time played 7/22/2006, which was the last night of the Grab tour.
Yeah, at Tuesday. Okay, Tuesday. Still a very current
Fish played it.
song. Like they play, they Tab still plays this. I'm not sure they played it this year, but they still play this. Closer to Liftoff. I think this one gets closer to Liftoff. But again, I kind of miss the horns.
Yeah.
And it's a little weird. Often I hear people people who don't love Tab will say, I could do without the horns, man. And maybe this is for them. But I'm kind of missing the horns because I'm like hearing, and Marco's doing a really nice job on the harmonics and stuff with his keys.
Incredible.
He's got like 40 fingers, I swear to God.
Just insane.
Yeah.
But it's not the same, and I'm sure he knows that. And that's not a detraction. It's just my brain, just like I'm hearing, bat, 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 bat.
Totally.
I'm hearing the horn hits and in my brain, and not hearing them in my ears, and so kind of disconcerting.
Brian, before I pass it off to you, I just want to say I don't have anything really to add. But I kept thinking that Hap Nappy was called Hot Pockets.
I like that name.
while I was listening.
I in my alt version of this band, they definitely have a song called Hot Pockets.
That's all. But that Hap Nappy, the guitar is growling, and the outro is amazing. Good playing from Mike, and I just Marco's jazzy like approach to this music, it just adds so much. And of course, like Russo's almost less noticeable because he's like, I don't know if he's as good as Fishman, but he's as active as Fishman. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
Marco's
It's
style
killer.
is so much different than Page's or Ray's that it just really sticks out to me. And I love Marco's playing. And so I don't know. That's all I
Marco's
got for that.
overdriven Rhodes or whatever the electric piano he's using. I'm not sure if it's a Whirly or Rhodes, but it's like I love that overdriven sound that he always has.
Really amazing. Sorry, go ahead, Brian.
Well, so I think you introduced this really nicely, Jonathan. I hope I'm not overstepping here by using a term that you and I have thrown around over.
I mean, I was going to use it later.
Okay, good.
Because it really applies more.
There are a couple songs this applies to, but I think that it's important to set the table here that we talked a lot about. How do I get into this? All right, I'm going to make a statement.
Let me say that guy here.
Well, let me say something qualifying, and then you can say it. I listened to a lot of 2006 Trey this last week between the Grab tour and that October tour that is really, really stunning. And I listened to Bar 17 a couple of times. I'm pretty convinced this is the strongest Trey has sounded as a guitarist not as a vocalist, but as a guitarist since 2003. 2004, I will defend aspects of it while admitting that there are a lot of moments, even in jams I listen to a lot, where it sounds as though Trey is searching for something, playing a lot of sounds and notes, and then, oh, there's like 3 bars of brilliant music, and oh, there's an effect that just works perfectly, and the rest of the band is grooving along with him. And Jonathan, I think you talked about this a lot when we did the 2004 episode, where it's kind of like a lot of what's going on, what's going on, oh, that's really nice, what's going on, well, that's really nice. And that happened in 2004. 2005 is I did not like at all, and I don't think that is a controversial opinion. For a lot of reasons, did not like anything that was coming out of Trey's music at that point in time. 2006 sounds like the focused, fire-breathing guitarist from 2003, but with the kind of grunge that we got in 2004. Now, as Jonathan's statement alluded to, there's a lot going on behind the scenes that makes it dark, challenging, and when you get into the actual songs that are written, there is a drum roll.
It's they're kind of anti-intellectual, and it's not just that the lyrics aren't thinkers, it's that like the music is simpler.
Yeah.
It's like it's kind of like if Fish played all Chalk Dust all night, right? Except not like a, full show Chalk Dust, but I mean Chalk Dust followed by Chalk Dust, followed by Chalk Dust, followed by maybe a adequate to par, subpar Reba, followed by Chalk Dust, followed by Chalk Dust, followed by Chalk Dust. Like there's nothing wrong with Chalk Dust. There's nothing wrong with, or there's not much wrong with a lot of these songs. It's just that like we know that Trey can do better, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to play Chalk Dust, but
Yeah.
like once a night,
Well, and, yeah,
he's not like he's not with this material. Trey is not aspiring pretty hard. He is going out there. He's probably having fun. He's, showing off chops and such in one area of chops, but it's all very much like below the waist chops. It's not above the neck chops, you know?
which is interesting because his guitar, if you've watched any videos of this, he has the longest strap he has ever worn for his guitar. He's almost like a punk rock guitarist. His guitar is below the waist as well. It's not like up high where he can actually play it.
Such symbolism.
No, but I think you're absolutely right, and I think it's one of the interesting things about a lot of these songs. I went through it. Trouble last time played 72206. Hap Nappy, Mike's song, but last time played 31414. Goodbye Head has been played, but last time played May 29th, 2019. Mud City, March 9th, 07. Uncle Albert, 72206. Dragonfly, March 4th, 2011. Who Are You, 72206. A lot of these songs are just completely left to the bin. I mean, I think he played What's Done at the Trey Trio show. I believe it was the first time that he had played What's Done since this era. A lot of these songs have never made it out of this era. And there's this dueling, like, in some cases, from an improvisational standpoint, we will not hear this side of Trey for 5 or 6 years. Like this ability to just take total risks and abandon the song structure and get out there in the way that we were hearing him do it in the late 1990s and early 2000s. This is the last time we're going to hear that for half a decade. And
Well,
for a
this
lot
is-
of people, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, I was just like, for a lot of people, like that is part of what we chase about this band, is that adventurism, that risk taking, that fear that are they actually going to make it through this improv? What is on the other side of this? How much longer does this go on for? Is there any resolution? And you get a lot of those moments in this, but the trade-off, to your point, Jonathan, is a lot of these songs that really just feel as though they're just set up for, okay, distorted power chord in a in a key that gets us into jamming space, and then the jam rules everything, and you get that structure from a lot of this.
I just want to say that we see the opposite of this, but again, like to Trey's prolific nature, we see the opposite approach of this in 2008, right? With Time Turns
Yes.
Elastic, Liquid
Yes.
Time,
Yep.
like all these that are the exact opposite song wise.
And those songs are going to make it into Fish, and they're going to stay
But
with us
they're
forever.
but they're complex, they're introspective, they're deeper, right, in terms of the lyrics. And
Yeah.
I just want to say, I was saying in the text chain, I would just respond with the word drugs every time you guys were like analyzing like all this
I
stuff. But
mean,
I do think it was just a party, you know, and I think he said as much. And I think that like this music reflects a party.
see my earlier statement about drugs, but yes, it's true. This is where Trey's head was at. It was as somebody who can, you know, we're not taking this piece of Trey Anastasio in isolation. We see who he is much larger, and I think he would agree to some degree that he wasn't, you know,
I think to a
devoting
lot
his
degree.
composition chops to this stuff. He was just playing, and there's to some respect, there's nothing wrong with that. Like I said earlier, I want to say though about Hap Nappy relative to the first couple songs, this one goes off. They kind of like
Mhm.
they rock it. It's something, um, and so it feels like the set kind of takes off with a song called Hap Nappy for whatever that is worth to you. And then Goodbye Head is the sort of, in my earlier fake set list is sort of the iffy Reba
Yeah.
of the set. Goodbye Head is an interesting tune. Brian, you asked us why Fish doesn't play this, and I actually answered this in my note before you asked us in the in our text thread, which is that it's because they play Fluffhead, they play
Sure.
Reba,
Sure.
and this song is similar to those in certain passages. Um, it's not a bad song though. I kind of
I love
dig
it.
why you dig it.
Yeah.
Um,
I think the
and
lyrics were written by his daughter, and there's that like whimsical, childish nature to them, but there's like that kind of deep quality of a child kind of musing on the world, and it feels in line with, if there's a, and I think we all try to take, as you said in your statement, an empathetic approach to where the band, to where Trey was at this point in time. There is a sense of that struggle while also trying to communicate who he was and where he was at that point. And the thing that I always find fascinating about this song is it does have that Reba quality to it, that Fluffhead quality, where it's very fussy and prog related and it's composed, but where Fluffhead builds to a peak and where Reba builds to this like bliss jam, Goodbye Heads builds to dissonant space. And there's something interesting about that juxtaposition within this composition that you don't get in those, Yem builds to a huge jam, sometimes to a spacious area. This, if you listen to a bunch of the versions from '06, they build into almost like the way that Discern jammed in 2003, where it was really focused on atmosphere and textures. And there's just something really fascinating about that you really get from the way Russo and Benevento complement this band.
but this one like bleeds into almost a fading out, where then Mike picks up the thread and drives a jam, and a good jam, I think. That takes us into Something for Rockets, which I guess is a
Yeah.
duo,
Duo
And
song.
then a Russo song.
yeah, duo
I
song,
got
and
it.
and a good one. I really dig it.
I
I
mean,
dug it.
they to your point about the adding in the layers, Brian, I think they just add in like pop and indie layers into these songs. And I think that Goodbye Head like into this Something for Rockets, which is like most of their stuff, it's just awesome. I mean, this episode really should be more about the duo and how good they are and how much they should make more music and tour again. They're just the mix of indie rock and groove. And to be fair, like most of Marco's solo albums, including his most recent one, are really along the lines of this style, which I think is great. Like I don't think it's very jam bandy at all. Like he's got a much more indie pop sensibility that I think is just great, and it really like this song is great and the jam is good, and I really like, that's probably my highlight of the set, just because it's just so different.
It sounds like an early Pumpkin song. It's just like it's shoegazy. It's I was hearing that in conjunction with Mike's song Hap Nappy and in conjunction with what Trey was writing. It was crazy to hear we're all the duo being one artist and then Mike and Trey being separate, if you will. But all three of these artists are converging in the mid 2000s. There's a lot of different ideas coming together that work really well in improv, and I get a sense that I don't think it works really well as like a band. Like this does not sound like a unified band throughout these shows.
No, I mean they pull it off, and I'm super glad we have it. And I'm also really glad that we're doing this show for 2006, because RJ missed the 2005, where we did have some opportunity to shine the light on the duo, and
True.
frankly, let's keep shining it. And I'm glad we had an opportunity to get your opinions and thoughts on them, RJ, because they're rad and they deserve the hype. I hear their current band is really good. The Joe Russo's Almost Something. I don't know. It's like they play covers of some other groups that I'm not familiar with.
But do check out Marco's solo stuff if
he's
you guys
great.
haven't, because his last album was really great. He's just such a good artist and very underrated, I think, in terms of his own contributions to music. Sorry.
Can I say one thing also? We touched on this really quickly in the last episode, but it's important to talk about it here because we've had a whole Phish tour since the last episode. Marco and Joe are like 28 years old at this time. Like this is
They look so young. You sent us one of the videos from.
Oh my god, Joe is so skinny. He doesn't have his beard.
Skinny. No,
and he's just like over the. It's Joe Russo, but it looks like a completely different person. It is amazing to see the opportunity that these guys have, and the challenge that you have in professional music, that your biggest opportunity meets someone else's biggest challenging period, and yet they converge to have this incredible music over like a 3 or 4 week period in time. That watching some of the videos of these shows, it looks like a Phish show, and it looks like people are trying to recreate the vibe of a Phish show. And everything that I've ever heard about this tour is that it was the closest thing between 2004 and 2009 to having that Phish vibe to it. And you can just see that Marco and Joe are taking full advantage of this entire experience, and it's inspiring to see. I would love to see more of this from them.
I think it's great, and I just like, they deserve the opportunity, and I'm glad they grabbed it, no pun intended, and have continued to run.
It's a second grab pun
of success. Yeah, it was.
Yes. What are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do? Sometimes you just got to seize the opportunities here. We are dads after all. So Shine comes next. Remember Shine? Honestly,
I have one note about Shine.
Forgotten about this song. I just don't hear it. I just haven't heard it, so I hadn't really thought about it in a long time. Is that weird? I want to hear your one note.
Yeah, I want to hear your one note, Brian, because I have 2 notes.
My one note is that Trey is happy and he can prove it.
I just think Marco's playing in this is just so complimentary, and it just makes this it makes the whole thing work. I like this song.
It's a very well-structured pop song. Yes.
Yeah. They're like, we all shine on.
It's got a catch.
That's a different song.
Yeah. Ryan notes that Shine is in pretty regular tab rotation these days, and I won't say he's wrong. I'm just saying I haven't heard it.
I just want to tell you guys that when the days come and gone, we all shine on.
Do we?
I have no problem with that statement. I think it's true.
Yeah. It's true. Anything else? Yeah.
And they did. Sorry, Jonathan. My second note.
Oh yeah.
Is that this? First of all,
this episode is as tight as a 2006 Trey show. I'll tell you what.
We're doing really well. We're almost all the way through the show. Come on.
It's just not kind, Brian.
There's a couple I think Shine appears on a bunch of, as Ryan Storm pointed out. Thank you. They're still playing it fairly regularly, but it appears on a couple live Tab records, and I just think it's like, I think it's a little underrated. Sorry, guys.
Mud City. So a couple thoughts. This to me like makes me think that somebody was sitting down to write a rock song and had Going Up the Country kind of in their head, except they were like, well, I don't want to write that. I want something a little more upbeat. But they still had it in their head. So they basically were like, going up the and they just kind of mumbled it in their head and then wrote a rock song. It's they moved really quickly away from it into a jam. That's a good thing I can say about Mud City.
It's just a rocker.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any theories as to where this is and why everyone, literally everyone, including your little sister, loves to go there?
It's the festival, bro. Mud City is the festival. Maybe
just want-
Bonnaroo, probably not Coventry, but maybe Coventry. It's the festival. Everybody wants to go to the festival, including your little
I just
sister.
want to note that this is written about on livefish.com as Trey touching on Stone's Exile era riffing in Mud City and Dragonfly, which to me,
I'm going to say something really negative before you tell us what it is to you. Who did they pay to write that? Because you pay people to write liner notes. Unless
to
you write
me, that
stuff.
confirms a lot of our conversations that we've had about this show, that there is a Mud City and Dragonfly, because I think that these songs are brothers that you know, hey, they're not going to make it out of the 8th grade. You know, they had a tough time, but they can lift a lot of hay. They can do a lot of work. But you know, you don't want to put your mind to it, because, you know, when I think about Dragonfly, I think about, you know, in what world are Boots and your Dragonfly a combo? Like, these are two things that I have been wondering. I do, Ryan. I'm watching the EPL while I'm recording this episode. Thank you for noticing. It is a tied match right now between Everton and Fulham.
Wow.
But these two songs just seem to be means to an end, almost in the way that, like, Trey talked about how he wrote Character Zero because they needed a big rock and roll song to end a show. But Character Zero has like slightly complicating
it
moments.
almost means stuff, you know.
It kind of does. Like, these songs just don't mean anything.
So there's a technique that a lot of writers use, songwriters, and you like the Beatles were pretty well known for it. John and Paul both. John especially though would
Bon Jovi, you're talking about?
What's that?
John Bon Jovi?
No, the Beatle John Lennon.
Oh, okay.
He also had a "We All Shine On" lyric. They would write. They would come up with a melody or a hook, but it may not have any sense of. They would use nonsense words and syllables to kind of fill it out. It's almost feels like Trey kept those. Yeah,
you saw a lot of that in the Get Back documentary, where there was just kind of like, this word
it's a
works
method. I
with
do
this
it too.
rhythm.
Sometimes you're just like,
I mean,
something
scrambled eggs.
Yeah.
Scrambled eggs, right? That's the most famous example in my mind.
So you know what you know what this sounds like. You just haven't figured out how to put the words in here to make it work, and then you do, or you don't,
or you don't. Well,
anyways, but we're getting ahead because I don't want to. Speaking of the Beatles, speaking of Paul McCartney, Uncle Albert Halsey from Paul and Linda McCartney's Ram is here, and it kind of late in the set, and I love it. It is just whimsical, fun. It's a little bit of a mess, but so's the original. It's just
it matches the charm of the original.
Awful.
It's great.
Absolutely. And just hearing Trey do some of those passages are just it's so cool. And it's kind of dumb, and I love it.
Agree
Well, I
with that
feel like
part.
this is where Marco shines because without
Yes.
his keyboards and without that distortion
Absolutely.
on his keyboards, you're not getting that like early 70s just kind of like dirty feel to it. I loved this. I thought
Yes.
this is a song where Mike really shines. His vocals really shine, and like this
Yep.
fits him perfectly. And it's got that weirdness that Paul McCartney could dip into while feeling so regal at the same time. I do, sorry, just to back up to the anti-intellectual Mud City, I
Oh,
do
yeah.
just want to say this song immediately moves into a Coventry groove jam is the only way I could define it. It's very sludgy, but like very powerful. There's a lot of Marco keys in this. It's very psychedelic.
Yeah.
There's almost like Plinko type jamming that we would hear Fish employ a couple of years later. Huge raging peak. And then Joe Russo and Trey align together in a way that, we don't want to be blasphemous in any sort of way, but RJ, you said this earlier, like there is a stylistic similarity to Joe Russo and John Fishman, and you can hear almost this excitement within Trey of being able to play with someone who can match him in terms of, oh, you're going to go for this riff, here's where I'm going to go from a rhythmic standpoint. And he's not getting that with a lot of his other drummers that he's playing with, other than Fishman and Joe Russo.
I do think the Uncle Albert thing, I just can't. But I mean, I do think with that and the Who Are You encore with Page, I do think that the one thing I'll agree with is what you guys said. It's like Fish would never do that, And so I do think like some of this is just like allows them to be a little more loose and have fun and be less serious about the material and pay homage to like stuff they really like, Even like Tab these days, like
Yes,
don't
Fish,
really
who
they don't do
screams
that.
unhend the knee, would never do anything this ridiculous. You're absolutely right.
Never.
Genuine
wouldn't.
assholes would never do
Such a
this.
serious end these
No,
days.
but that's actually it's a good point though, because they would prefer to create their whole own album as opposed to like playing Zeppelin at this point.
True.
you
Yeah,
know?
that's a
And I
good
think
point.
like
Yeah.
2003-4 Fish was kind of the same thing. Like the covers are established in their repertoire for the most part, and I
That's a
think
good
this allows them to loosen up a little bit,
The Dragonfly is a little bit, and it just bursts like he just shouts out the first line, and then boom, we're rocking Dragonfly. Okay, and then they have an encore.
Dragonfly, it should be
cool.
noted, this is one of 4
Go ahead.
songs written by Trey, Mike, Benevento, and Russo ahead of the tour.
Yeah.
I didn't do all the research to learn what the other 3 songs are. So Ryan Storm, if you want to tell me what the other 3 songs are, I'm anxiously awaiting, but Dragonfly is one of 4.
Ryan, you
Well-
have 4 minutes for this research, or we will not put it on the screen.
I don't think I knew that actually. That's interesting.
I didn't either. I thought it was a Trey song, and then
Yeah, me too.
It's
on
it
bar
is clearly
17
just
though, isn't
employed to be like, it's on bar 17, which came out 4 months after this. And you can tell it just feels like a song when you know that and you listen to it. It just feels like a song that was like, all right, we just need, to your point, Jonathan, like power chords, energy, and something that we can shout. And Boots in Your Dragonfly is it.
So they must have written this. So it was debuted by Tab that spring. So that means that they were writing and prepping for this. I know Marco talked about getting a call from Trey. He's told that story on a couple different shows, including an interview I did with him on Past, Present, Future Live. A shout out to this. I had a lot of fun doing that show. He got a call and Trey said, "Hey, you want to join a band with me?" And he was like, "What?" And then he said yes. But so they must have done a bunch of recording and prep like in the early part of 06, and then Tab went out, and then they did
Worked
this
the song
tour,
a
'cause-
little.
Yeah, because he was playing this song throughout
You don't
06 with
book
Tab.
a summer tour like this in the spring.
Fair.
This tour. So and if it's Trey calling up Marco or Joe or both or whatever, then it's probably a situation of Phil is doing a summer tour and looking for an opener. What's Trey Anastasio got going on? And here we are. So
That was a pretty good. That was a pretty good imitation.
That was a good Phil.
That's by Phil Lesh. I don't know. I never tried to do a Phil impression.
Phil
That was
was
really
talking
good.
with Tom Petty,
Except when I
and Tom
sing
was like,
just
I
like
got this
Tom
great
Cruise
opener
blues.
this summer. You should take him.
Yeah. So can I just say again something? Maybe I didn't say it yet. Who Are You? The encore fucking rips. Um, Paige is out there. Mike's on the acoustic. You touched on that earlier, RJ, and that shit's really cool. I had some thoughts about the Phil set too, but you guys want to have more to say about this grab set
Nope.
before
I think
carry on?
I think the only thing I have to say is just in closing, I would encourage people to scurry around the highlights. The next show of this opens with a 26-minute "Who Are You" that is it's really really good. I would recommend people check out the Fall '06 tour. There's a couple really great versions of I was listening to last night. If You're Walking from I think 1018 from the Vic Theater in Chicago. It's like 20 minutes, goes into sand. It's really, really wild. There's amazing versions of Bar 17. The 102306 show from Boulder, Colorado is highly worth your time. It's just this stuff just showcases Trey at a very intense period of his life that improvisationally he would not return to for 5 or 6 years, as I said earlier. And to Jonathan's point earlier, we are all very lucky, not just Trey, but all of us very lucky that this ended as quickly as it did, and he was able to transition over the course of about a year into where he's at. But I'm really glad we did this show. I think it's cool that we highlighted Grab. I think it's cool that we've highlighted the duo as much as we've had throughout this tour, because it's clear that they came in and out of the Phish orbit in a really fascinating way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Phil Lesh headlined the show and had a pretty good little band with him himself. Greg Osby on sax, Joan Osborne on vocals, John Molo on drums, Rob Baracco on keys, Barry Sless on pedal steel, and Larry Campbell on guitar as well. So you think that's a full band. They don't need to bring anybody out. But of course, they have Trey Anastasio around, and Trey likes to play. We all know this. So he comes out for the second set, and they do Scarlet Begonias into Viola Lee Blues into a bass duo. Mike Gordon comes out and there's a bass duel, and it's not just the two of them though. There's the band really plays behind it in this weird, almost Phish-like jam. It's super cool, very worth checking out. And then Help Slip Frank. Come on, so good to get Help Slip Frank from Trey. I absolutely just loved this set, and a good midnight hour encore to wrap it up. But Trey is playing pretty strong leads, nothing super crazy out front. Um, but good and very entertaining, and he sings too, and can't get enough of Trey playing Grateful Dead material, and God bless Phil Lesh for getting him out there.
Do you remember the that Fare Thee Well tour they did in 2018?
Yeah,
It's all right.
went to Chicago.
Good stuff.
That was pretty good.
Had a pretty good time.
Stuff.
Good.
Really, really rose the occasion there.
It's kind of amazing that we took a break from the series for summer tour, and then we picked it back up at like the most up in the air time for Phish. So it's kind of fun to go back, because we've been in 2023 Phish for a while, and this is fun. Is there any takeaways, guys, before we wrap up and go back to our regularly scheduled Saturdays?
I mean, I think we're at a really interesting inflection point for the band's history. 07 is going to be darker, I think, in a lot of cases than 06. Although by the end of the year, there's going to be a sense of possibility. It's really wild to go back and listen to this and think that 2009 Phish is just 3 years away. Like, to think back 3 years prior
That's
from
crazy.
right now, and to think that within 3 years Trey is going to essentially abandon this type of playing and is going to be rebuilding Phish. I don't know. We're at a very wild period here in terms of like the Phish story and their overall history. And I thought just on the Phil show, his vocals on "You Got to Hide Your Love Away" were really quite nice and really kind of spoke to where he was at emotionally at that point in time. It felt kind of charred in a really intense way.
I think that, I mean, 2006 Fish didn't exist, right? I mean, a lot of us, like RJ, you described your own life in 2006. Brian, you too, didn't go to see this stuff. I didn't go to see this stuff. A lot of Fish fans had been, I think, bummed when Fish broke up. So many of us were like, yeah, that needs to happen. And we had moved on to some degree. This kind of felt like, to some of us, felt like it was, maybe just a weird, like, I don't know. At the time, I didn't really think that this was a thing that I needed to care about. It felt like it was some sort of poor substitute. I like listening to it now to a degree. Still reminds me of certain place where, we're at the place where Trey was at, and I don't love it 100%, but there is interesting stuff here, and I think it is worth folks maybe taking some time to kind of peruse some of this music. And Mike, Marco, and Joe are killing it on this stuff. They're really delivering, and Trey is just riding on top a lot of the time. Yeah, I don't know that I think of 2007 as darker. Like, Trey's just really not there.
Yeah, I think that's the better way.
Which is
Yeah,
good.
it just it's the closest thing to this is never going to happen again for
True,
that
but like, I don't know, some of us really thought it wasn't like, this didn't make me think Fish could happen. Even like in the time, like, oh, Page came out, maybe Fish will come back. I didn't think that. Some people, I'm sure, did.
Yeah.
There's certainly, I know that there were younger people who had a lot riding on the existence of Fish for, their like future recreation and identities and things like that. And there
Yeah.
were really people like that, and they still are. And okay, yeah, no, Brian, I don't think you were. You raised your hand, but like, you
Well,
weren't. You will let yourself move on because
I had moved on, but I was also like, the last Fish show I saw felt like
Yeah.
this cruel joke. Like, I listened to all these tapes, and then I saw 8 shows, and it was like, have I ever seen this band? There was this sense from 2004 to 2009 that I'd never actually seen.
And I would have said
Fish.
no.
Yeah, you would have.
I would have.
A lot of people
did.
did. A lot of people did.
But that's point being that, like, Fish was gone, and in 2007 still gone, and I don't know where I was going anymore. I got derailed by my own self, and but yeah, this is cool stuff. I'm glad we covered it, and I look forward to, if I'm here next week, talking next week.
Next week, the next show we talk about, Trey will be, on his way to recovery. So, that's all. We're heading up from here. Brian, Jonathan, thank you. Ryan Storm said he loves Saturday morning HF Pod. I kind of do too. I can't promise that we will always be able to do it on Saturdays, but it's kind of it's leisurely.
My family does not appreciate it, but
Yeah.
I like it. I like
think my
HF
family
Pod
probably
over
doesn't either.
coffee.
My daughter keeps asking me if we're going to the beach soon. So yeah, I guess that's the end of that. All right, guys, we'll see you in 2007.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.